Finding top candidates for a commission-based sales role can be difficult. In fact, it's very difficult compared to, say, a sourced HR role, somebody who's in accounting or even just inside sales where they're salary-based. When you don't offer a salary-based income, it can sometimes be difficult to find the candidates you're looking for. And so in this episode of our recruiting course for commission sales, we're going to talk a little bit about sourcing and where you can find these candidates and where the best ones actually are sitting. Because the big key here is you want to make sure you don't pick up on the worst candidates ever. And that can sometimes happen, especially with the job aggregators. It might feel like you have a lot of candidates. It might feel like if you have an access to a resume database, that there it is, there's the golden ticket. But how many of you have already recruited 2 or 3 of these people that are already gone now? We talked in the first video about retention being an issue in this type of role, and part of that is because of how you recruited them into the role in the first place, where you actually got them. The number one source for any commission-based sales role is by personal referral. And I want to talk about referrals first, because this is the way you're going to get the people that last 4 years. And I'm not saying everybody's going to last 4 years, but you're certainly going to get a better quality candidate because they already believe in the role. They already believe in the fact that you're doing it, and they already believe in the company when they come in referred by somebody else. So think about this. How do you get referrals? Well, we're teaching sales, right? In most cases, not only are you recruiting into commission sales, but you're probably the one that's training them in the early days as well. And when you're training them, you're telling them to ask for referrals at the end of every appointment, at the end of every phone conversation, at the end of every sale. You need to kind of do the same thing yourself when sourcing into these roles. Too many times I see people recruiting to commission-based sales roles out of job aggregators like Indeed and Monster and others. You can go to ZipRecruiter. You can have your posting there. You shouldn't ignore those candidates because sometimes there is a diamond in the rough. But you have to see literally 10,000 more candidates to get 10 recruits through a job aggregator, and I should say 10 recruits that last 4 years through a job aggregator, versus you have to see up to 200 candidates to get 10 recruits from a referral. And that's fact. That is actual fact. Seeing 200 good quality referrals will get you 10 candidates that will last 4 years versus having to see 10,000 resumes through an aggregator. So why spend all that time? It doesn't mean, as I said, don't have it, but because there could be that diamond in the rough and you don't want to miss them. But let's talk referrals and then we'll get into aggregators. So referrals themselves are people that come from friends, family, and hopefully your own team. If you already have a team, you already have a referral source for anybody you need to add to your team. And you might think, well, they might see this as competition. They might see this as competing for sales. But if they're really a good salesperson, they won't see it that way at all. In fact, sometimes healthy competition is good competition, and that might help your team sell even more. And you might say, well, a lot of times I have asked my employees for referrals. Hey guys, we're adding somebody new to our sales team. Do you know anybody? And oftentimes the answer is no, or nah, I don't think so, or I can't think of any. Well, the reality is, yes, they can if you rephrase the question. So here's an activity. This activity should work in your next sales meeting if you use it right. And here's what I'm saying. Sit down your sales team and have that sales meeting as you normally do. But run an activity where you ask them to list the 3 most successful people that they know. Just the 3 most successful people that they know. Then ask them to list 2 or 3 of people that they know that could be disturbable from their own career. We're not necessarily looking for people out of a job, but somebody who could be disturbed out of their own career. 3 more people. And then end the exercise. Each person should now have 6 referrals right there for you. Because when you're recruiting into a sales commission role, you want somebody who's coming from success. You don't want somebody who's churned from your nearest competitor. So if somebody says down the road, I hear, Larry from down the road is disturbable, but that's because he hasn't sold anything for our competitor, that's not a referral, and that's not somebody you want to bring into the process. Even if you have a recruiting target like financial services often does, you don't want to recruit that person that's going to just leave, because it counts as a termination later, and it's something that hurts your process overall. So ask for real good referrals, and that's an activity you can use really quickly. If you have a team of 10, you're talking like 60 candidates right there. You're not going to call each and every one of them necessarily, but once you have everybody's 6 people, you can then say, tell me about this person. Tell me about this person. What are they doing? Do you think we could disturb them out of their role? Is this something that they've maybe thought of before that you could tell them about? Because all of a sudden now they do have 6 candidates to refer you. So when that happens, now you've got all up to 60 candidates. As I said, if you've got 10 sales team members, you've got up to 60 candidates right there that could be referred into the process without you ever having to go to a job board. And you can run this a couple of times a year, and you can keep those candidates in the sales pipeline, or the recruiting pipeline, I should say, from there on. So those are the number one, because you don't have to, it's 1 in 10 you can possibly hire out of that, right? 1 in 10 referrals gets hired. Right. And you think about the stats even for that I gave you earlier about, seeing 10 of them or seeing 200 of them to get 10 that last 4 years. That's huge for your retention, and a lot less work for you in the recruiting process. Asking for referrals. Now, there's another place you can ask for referrals as well, and that's through your centers of influence. And who are your centers of influence? I'm guaranteeing you have 1 million of them. Maybe you don't have 1 million of them, but maybe you've got 1 to 5 really strong centers of influence that you use for other things, whether that's getting new business in the door, whether that's somebody that you just constantly network with questions that helps your career or helps what's going on in your business. Those are good centers of influence. And because they know what you do, they can be nominators for what you are doing and suggest to others that, hey, you know what? I've heard about this career opportunity. My friend Chris has the opportunity available right now. Let me connect you with him and see if this is the right thing for you. Referrals from your centers of influence. Ask. Be the same way you ask your sales team to ask for referrals, you should be asking referrals for yourself when it's time to add to your commission-based sales team. Referrals are the absolute key to sourcing, an absolute key to sourcing effectively without having to put too much work into it. So we've talked a little bit about referrals from your team. We've talked about centers of influence referrals, which are good too. The next best place to get people, believe it or not, is social media. Social media is almost like a referral because they can actually look into your company. They can see your previous posts. They can see the videos you've posted or the articles you've posted and really get a good sense of what it is that your company does before ever engaging you for the career opportunity. So for example, on a LinkedIn, you don't necessarily have to post. You can just start to utilize, if you have LinkedIn Premium, that's one way to do it. But even then, you don't really have to have LinkedIn Premium in order to source from LinkedIn. If you find a candidate that you really like from LinkedIn that happens to be a third-degree connection and you have to send them a message in order to get them to connect, great, because that message can be the early part of what you do to try and recruit them in. You can say, listen, you and I both know so-and-so, and I'd love to connect for a coffee. I have an opportunity I'd like to bring to your attention. There's no reason you can't write that 3-sentence set of words to get them interested in meeting with you for a coffee or some kind of sit down to talk about your opportunity. And during that time, you can believe they're going to click on your profile. They're going to read the whole thing. They're going to click on where you are. They're going to click on your company, and they're going to read the whole thing about that. And so just like referrals, they come in a little half sold. If they happen to still come to that meeting, that means they have some interest in what you have to say. And again, a much better candidate than somebody who just comes off of a job aggregator. Much, much better. And you can even get this done through Twitter, through LinkedIn, through Instagram, through Facebook. If you know from Facebook friends, if you're somebody who has 500 Facebook friends, absolutely go through it and see if there's anybody that's successful in their business or complaining about how business is right now. Maybe they're a business owner and things are tough. This could be an opportunity for them in a commission-based sales role to be able to succeed again. Go for that person. Spend the time. Find the connections on LinkedIn, and they will be the ones. If you reach out with a little blurb that again says, this is what I do, and this is how I do it, and I believe we have an opportunity here for you, or especially if they already know somebody, if they're not a third degree connection, but a second, you can even mention those people and say, you and I both know Sally, and Sally, I think, is a great person, and obviously if we both know her, we're both successful people, let's talk about an opportunity I have. And more often than not, you'll get a response. Okay. Next, we talk a little bit about the job aggregators and opportunities. There's other opportunities too. Before we get into the aggregators that I still think are better than the aggregators themselves, that's community things you're doing. Are you coaching your kids' team? Are you a parent volunteer for your kids' team? Is there something that you're doing out in the community? Are you in your church? Are you in your other community center that you're doing a lot of volunteering for, where you meet a lot of people? Because those people know you, they know your brand, and they know that you're willing to give back. You're somebody who actually gives back to the community. They'll be far more interested in your career opportunity because they know you're a good person. And they know that what you're doing is something more and over and above. They might even wonder, how do they have this extra time to be able to do it? Well, often in a commission sales role, you're making your own hours. You'd love to maybe sell that to somebody who's looking for a new career opportunity. So again, even the things you're doing in the community should be opportunities to recruit into that commission-based sales role that you have. And lastly, for our sourcing video, let's talk about the job aggregators. Now, I'm not saying you don't post on ZipRecruiter, you don't post on Indeed, you don't post on other posting sites that you have. You need to try and get that diamond in the rough if they exist. But understand that a lot of times the resumes that are on there are stale. So if you're looking through the resume database, you may really want to look into how long that resume has been there. If it's been there for 2 years, most likely it is nowhere near up to date, and that candidate you're looking at is either somewhere else now, or they're still not, and nothing's been updated. And that could be a red flag. The other thing is, if there's somebody that's serial applying to jobs, they may do that with you. They may tell you and say all the different things you want to hear in order to get that job. And because of that, they may come on looking great, but then how many times have you had to either let them go, or they walked away because they couldn't make any money? Or they took that base you were going to give them in the first 3 months, that advance that everybody seems to sometimes give, and they took it and then they left. Happens all the time. We're going to talk a little bit about, when we get candidates in the next video, how to look through their resumes to decide whether you actually want to have an interview with them. You're going to find a huge difference between the ones that were referred in and the ones that come from aggregators. And we'll talk about that in our next video, where we talk about sorting out resumes to make sure you interview only the best. Stay tuned.